Book Dragon. So I'm back for my September reading wrap up so far. So it is the 15th, so I normally do a mid-month wrap up. Last year, the start of the year, I had such a hard time reading. I don't think I did that. But so far, I've read 10 things, and I just think I'm in a better headspace than last year, both academically and with schoolwork and just sort of with my reading life. Also, doing readathons really does help because it motivates me, especially competitive readathons. So yeah, I'm just gonna I always start out with stats, and then my stats will change at the end of the month. But currently, I have finished reading 10 books, and I'm really, really proud of that. I read total 3,426 pages. That's an average of 114 pages a day. I definitely read more on weekends, I'll be honest, but that's still a pretty good number. My average page count is 342, which is up. I've been reading longer books, which is still pretty good because I have read 10. And my most read genre is mystery, which is actually very exciting. And a lot of my romantic suspense books would be considered mystery, so that number is probably bigger because I am in a mystery mindset. I also read 5 books with rep and from 7 authors I read before, and I am a part of Battleathon, so I have been hunting for some 5-star reads, and I've been pretty successful. So I had 3 5 stars, 4 4 stars, 1 3.5 star, and that's it. So my lowest was like a 3.5 read, and that's really not that bad. For my average rating of 3.85, and that is pretty good for me anyway. And then I read 9 new releases and 1 backlist, and none from like in the past. So I've been pretty much reading new releases this month. I read 5 physical, 5 audiobooks, and that's it. So that was a pretty nice breakdown. And I have been listening to a lot of audiobooks, especially in the last week, because I have gone back to work and I've been grading and I need something to listen to. And series breakdown, I started 2 series, continued in 3, completed 1, and read 4 standalones. 2 of the books I read, the T.E. Kinsey and the Catherine Cowles, I am caught up on the series right now, but like another book just came out in the T.E. Kinsey series and another book comes out in the Catherine Cowles series next month. So I'm not going to put that on my spreadsheet until like I read the next book, because then I'll be caught up and I don't want my like spreadsheet to be out of whack or like not count. So I'm waiting for those to happen. And then I read 2 ARCs, 2 from Audible, 1 from KU, and 4 owned. I've been trying to read my own books, especially because I'm probably going to 3 conventions in the next 12 months, so I want to get my TBR down. It's never going to be down to 0, but I want to get it down a little bit further. I read 1 fantasy, 3 mystery, 2 YA horror, 2 romance, which I would classify as romantic suspense, and 1 middle grade. And yeah, I think that those are all my stats. So now I'm going to get into the books, and we're going to chat about them. If you have not been following, I am participating in Battleathon, which is hosted by Melanie Reens, and I'm Team Blue Dragon. So the theme for this month was to read new to me authors and try to find some 5-star reads. I have found some 5 stars. They have not all been from new to me authors, but the whole goal is to read 5 stars. So I've been pretty successful with that. So the first book I picked up, this was the book I picked up the first day of September, and I finished this before I went back to work, was Inkblood Sister Scribe by Emma Torres. This is just worked for me. This book was really interesting and really compelling. It has 3 main point of view characters, and I just devoured it. It was a very interesting, compelling story. You basically follow Esther and Joanna, and they are sisters, they're half-sisters, and they're engrossed in this magical society. And there's a 3rd point of view that I don't want to spoil that kind of get introduced in the middle of this book that I loved. That character captured the whole read for me. But I love this. It was very a twisty, turny mystery, a very cool magical world, and I just loved it. But basically, these 2 characters are connected and guardians of this library, and magic starts occurring, and they have to kind of figure out why people are dying around their family, including their father. And the 3rd point of view character was definitely my favorite, but I really love this book. I gave it 5 stars, and it just worked. I think it's going to be a very, very early fall read. I'm going to actually add this in a recommendation video soon, but I really, really loved it. I loved her writing style. There was a lot of elements to the story that I think were really, really played well. It does has LGBTQ plus rep as well, and I really liked it. I gave it 5 stars. I'm not being too descriptive with the synopsis, but it does have witchy vibes, and there is a murder. There's a mystery element to it, and it does focus a lot on sister dynamics. So I really liked it, and I gave it 5 stars. Definitely read it if you're looking for a unique fall read. I like it so much, I might even try to get the Waterstone edition. We will see. And then the next book, I have to look at my list because I always forget what order I read them. Okay, the next book I read was an audiobook, and that is Act of Foul Play by T.E. Kinsey. I will attach a photo here. Book I gave 4 stars to, and it is the second to latest book in the I don't know the name of the series, but A Quiet Place in the Country, that series. And I really, really like this, Lady Hardcastle. It was set at like a theater show gone awry. There was a murder the main characters have to solve. And this is just a cozy historical, you know, what is historical romance, but like historical mystery. And I just loved it. I thought it was great. I love being back in the theater world. I teach theater, so that was just sort of fun. And I gave it 4 stars. I really am excited to read the next one. That one just came out. I just got it on KU, so I'll probably listen to it in the next couple of weeks. But I gave that one 4 stars, and it was an enjoyable read. The next book I read is an e-arc that I got, or an arc that I got, and that is The Blonde Identity by Ali Carter. I actually started reading about 50 pages of this and decided to go back and get the audio because I think that I struggle sometimes reading mystery thrillers. I really prefer to listen to them. That was the case with this one, but I enjoyed it. I gave it like 3.5 stars. I will admit the last chapter of this definitely intrigued me enough to want to pick up book 2, and I have liked Ali Carter in the past, but I felt like this was like reading an action movie, and the plot was very, very fun, very, very twisty turny. But I didn't feel that connected to the characters, so I just didn't feel that connected. But you basically follow this main character, and she wakes up with no memory of who she is, but a guy kind of comes after her and basically says that her twin sister is a spy, and she doesn't have any memory, but like he's kind of trying to protect her because they look alike. And yeah, it was just a fun time. Like, again, I felt it was like, there was some spicy moments. It's definitely a romance. It's not like a heavy romance, but there is a romance subplot. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I just don't think the characters made that big of an impression on me. But I am excited for book 2, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. And then the next book that I've read is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murders for Jesse Q. Sutanto, and I gave this book 4 stars for review. This was part of a mystery reading vlog that I did by authors that I've read before, and I like this one. I thought it was a solid read, and it was very, very fun, very, very quick, definitely more cozy. You know, normally when you read a cozy mystery, I think like, you know, the mystery is more the highlight of the story. For this, the mystery definitely did have an element, but I would definitely say this book was more cozy. But you basically follow this character named Vera Wong, and someone is killed in her tea shop, and she kind of takes it upon herself to kind of solve the murder. And I will say about midway through, I kind of saw the mystery coming, but this book was just a warm hug. Like, this book was different because unlike Jesse's previous books, you got a lot of different side characters' point of view, including the murderer, and I just liked it because the main character was very, very unlikable. It was also a very modern, cozy mystery with a lot of modern elements. I'm not going to spoil what they are because I think it will give away the book, but I just liked all the side characters, and I liked how those books focused on found family, especially for Vera Wong, who was a little bit isolated, and these characters just kind of became a family, and I really, really enjoyed it. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing more books set in this world because I really did like all the side characters, and I gave it 4 stars. And then the next book that I read is another book that I read by an author before, but it is another murder mystery, and that is Last Girl Standing by Jennifer Dugan. This book has a very open ending, and I sort of struggled with it a little bit, but I did like it, and I gave it 3.5, 4 stars for review. But you basically follow these 2 characters. You follow Sloane and Cherry, and they are the aftermath of a serial killer. They were working at the summer camp, and everyone at the summer camp died except for them. And then throughout kind of like people dying, like a court case, they're kind of have to re-deal with their trauma. And they're definitely trauma bonded, these 2. They definitely are. And I think it's a very interesting take on that. I did like it. It has a very open ending. The characters are a little bit unlikable, and you only get Sloane's point of view. So I think the book was interesting. It just wasn't my favorite, but it was very, very intriguing, and I did like it. So I'm definitely going to put this in my classroom for my students. I think, again, it's another really early fall read, and it definitely has an open ending. So if you like mysteries with open endings, I would pick this one up, and it does have LGBTQ plus rep. And if you read Verona Comics about the codependency of a relationship, that is definitely tackled on here, just with a different kind of element to it. And the mystery was interesting. But the characters weren't as likable, and I struggled with that a little bit. I'll talk about unlikable characters in another book in a little bit. But I gave it 4 stars, and I still want to read more by Jennifer Dugan because she's a very fun author, and this definitely started getting me into the fall vibe spirit. The next book that I picked up was Echoes of You by Catherine Cowles. This is the second book in her Lost and Found series. I will attach a photo here, but spoiler alert, I gave this book 5 stars. This followed Nash and Maddie, and basically Nash is the cop and Maddie kind of came back. She was in like an abusive relationship, and that is the premise of this, and they kind of get reconnected. All of Catherine Cowles' books, all the characters are very alpha male, and what I realized is like obviously they're alpha male because the whole story is about romantic suspense. So these 2 books I read this month had probably the most romantic suspense. This is her most suspenseful series, I would say. So if you're really in it for the romance and not really the suspense, I would check out her Tattered and Torn series, but this has a nice balance, and I actually do like all the side characters, and they had a romance. It was very, very fun, very, very quick. I like seeing all the side characters. It was a quick read. It kept me reading and kept me engaged, and I did really like the elements. I think there was some elements in this book that kind of surprised me, which was shocking because it's hard to do that with me, but I really liked it. And then I quickly read Glimmers of You, but I will talk about that in a little bit. But I gave this one 5 stars, and so far it's definitely my favorite book in the whole series. And then the next book that I read is The Prince and the Apocalypse by Kara McDonald, and I will show you guys that now. This is another 5-star read that I actually had, and I really like this. I went in this kind of not knowing what to expect, but you basically follow these 2 characters named Ren. Well, you follow Ren, and she goes on like a trip to England after college, after she graduates from high school, and things don't go according to plan. She has like a pretty miserable trip, and as she's frantically trying to get back to America, says that the world's gonna end, a comet's gonna come, is gonna explode the world, and she is frantically trying to get home to see her family one last time, and she kind of meets up with a prince, and they kind of need each other to kind of get back home. She needs him because he has more connections, and he needs her because she can be his beard and do things that he can't do because everyone knows what he looks like. And I enjoyed this book. It was a fun time. Was it insta-lovey? Yes. Did it have moments where I think it was straight up corny? Yeah, but it worked. It was just a really, really fun read. We're getting a sequel. I'm just going to say that so you don't kind of go in knowing it, because I didn't. But I loved it. I read it in like a day. It was a really, really quick read. I love the characters. It gave me pandemic elements. It did, but it wasn't overtly like the pandemic, and I just liked it. It was a wild time. It was fun. It was quick, and I gave it 5 stars. I definitely want to go back and read more by this author in the future, and it had the royal elements that I liked. It reminded me of Harry and Meghan, and how this book is not told from the male character's point of view, but I felt like Kara McDonald did a good job kind of delving into his psyche, and I gave it 5 stars, and I really hope to read more by this author in the future. And then the next book, sorry, I'm looking at it on my computer, and I tend to forget what order I read things. And then the next book I read was the other Catherine Cowles, and if I didn't attach the photo there, I will attach the photo here. But I also picked up Glimmers of You by Catherine Cowles, and that's the 3rd book in the series. So this was a book that I did really like, and I think I gave it like 4 stars. I liked it. I think that the highlight of this book for me was definitely Gray, and she has type 1 diabetes, I think. My uncle had that, so whenever I read Rip like that, I think it's very interesting. And I enjoyed this one. It was a best friend's older brother romance. I don't think I've ever read that trope, but I really liked it. Again, all the side characters are great. The elements in this story was more wild. Like, there was a lot of elements in this story that just was wild to me, but I did like it. Oh no, maybe this was the one. I think the first one was the romantic element. This story, there was someone that was like stalking her, and she had to want to fake dating her boyfriend because the the guy wouldn't get the hint, and then creepy things started happening to her, like a lot of creepy things, and some of them made me super nervous. But I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I'm really excited for book 4, which is Shadows of You, because that's Aspen's story. I tend to like the character that kind of gets a little bit of build up, so this book has the potentiality to be my favorite, and the last book, which is Single Dad, and the next book, Single Mom. But yeah, I liked it. I gave it 4 stars, and this is probably her most suspenseful book I've read so far. Suspenseful wise, it's probably the most suspenseful, but I still like Echoes of You a little bit more. So yeah, that was my thoughts on Glimmers of You and Echoes of You. Their titles are so similar. And then I finished reading Suddenly a Murderer by Laura Munoz. This is a new to me author, and I gave this book 4 stars. I would equate this kind of with this because the characters are a little bit unlikable, and I've always said that is not my jam. I don't love when books have unlikable characters because I need to root for them. But this follows a bunch of characters, but mostly you follow Izzy and her best friend Cassidy decides to have a 1920s party at this party that's kind of connected to an old movie that they love, and Cassidy's boyfriend dies, and 2 cops come to kind of try to solve the day, and one cop gives me Sherlock Holmes vibes, and then you kind of flash back into the past and see different moments from the other characters' point of views. The characters are a little bit unlikable, so it took me, I would say, about 100 pages to like really get connected to them, and I would definitely say Marlowe is my favorite, but it was a fun read. The end was really, really surprising to me. Like, I didn't see the ending coming. I would definitely check out more by this author in the future, and it was a fun read. Definitely gave me Clue or Sherlock Holmes vibes, and it worked, and I gave this one 4 stars. And then the last book that I finished reading was definitely the end of an era, and that is the Van Beekers Ever After. I got this book from Libro FN from their Educator ALC program, so I want to give them a little bit of a shout out. I gave this book 5 stars. It was the last book in the Van Beeker series, and I was not emotionally prepared for it. So let me attach a photo. Very charming middle grade series. It's probably the only like contemporary middle grade series that I read, because I tend to read fantastical ones, but this one just like struck a chord with me. I read it on a whim. The first book is set around Christmas, and the Van Beekers it's set in New York City. It's set right around the college that I went to, like when I started reading this series so many years ago, and it's set on near Convent Avenue where I went, near City College, and they're basically trying to convince their landlord to not kick them out. And every book sequence has like a theme, and all the books have heartfelt moments. You kind of become so invested in this family's life, and it's just such a heartfelt read. Every story has different harder topics. I'm not going to spoil like the whole series, but there definitely is grief elements and like growing up and friendship dynamics kind of infused through the whole story. This book I think was the hardest for me to read. One of the characters got big spoiler warning. It's like in the summary, so I think they're probably like not going to give it away, but one of the characters gets diagnosed with something that's pretty serious and kind of takes the family on a journey. And just like in my personal life, that has been happening to me. One of the people in my personal life has cancer. So it just was a very like a wild ride to read it and listen to someone else's experience, knowing that I'm living it myself. But it was just, it was a very like emotional read. Like, I will say that, like, you really got to see all the characters and the main character that's dealing with it, how it affects the whole family. And it was just a very like, it was a very uplifting read, even though there were sad moments. They really do look at all, Karen Glaser really does look at all sides of cancer and the treatment of it, and what it does to a family, and the positives and negatives, the effects, the good sides, the bad sides. And I would say this book does have a happy ending because it's called Van Beeker's Happily Ever After, but just know that there is some darker moments to it, and it's a realistic look at the cancer journey. I will say that. So I really did like it. I gave it 5 stars. And yeah, that is all the books that I read so far in the month of September. I'm really curious to see if I could keep this pace going, and I'm happy that I have the Battle-a-thon to kind of motivate me to keep reading. I think that that's what I found, that when I get stressed out, I tend to not read, but reading really is my self-care. So let me know in the comments what you have read so far this month. And I will talk to you guys soon for another video. Hopefully I will be able to keep cranking out content because I love making videos for you all. So I will talk to you guys soon. Tell me in the comments what you're currently reading. I would love to know, and I'll talk to you guys later.